Hi, I'm Jared, and today I want to tell you about The Annals of the Former World by John McPhee. This book was published in 1998 by FSG and was written by John McPhee, who, as some of you might know, is kind of a giant of the narrative nonfiction world. He was a staff writer at The New Yorker for decades and in many ways kind of created the form of narrative long-form journalism that many of us enjoy today. As you can see on the cover here, McPhee won the Pulitzer Prize for this book in 1998, which is the culmination of 30 years of reporting and research and voyages that he did across the landscape of North America. Basically, his concept in this book is to tell the geological history of the North American continent. And he did that by voyaging east to west along Interstate 80, which roughly parallels the 40th parallel. And he did so in the company of 5 or 6 different eminent geologists. And so over the course of 600 plus pages, this is a pretty weighty, thick book that's divided into 4 or 5 subbooks. He goes piece by piece through the North American continent, telling the story of these geologists who are characters in their own right, and also telling the story of the landscape and the geology and the topography and how it's all evolved over the course of literally billions of years. Since the origin of planet Earth, things have been changing, things have been shifting, mountains have been rising up and been cast down by the forces of gravity and erosion and water and rivers, and that has made the landscape that we see today. And so from McPhee's point of view, and the theme really of this book is that everything is moving. That's what he says at different points when he's describing plate tectonics and geological history. So the first question you might ask is, why geology? Why would someone like McPhee, who's into telling stories of people and of society and of the living world and writing on a weekly basis for something like The New Yorker, choose such a boring and staid topic as geology? Who cares about rocks in the ground and how they got there? Well, McPhee speaks to that early on in the book, and he gives some insight into what kind of arrested him and what pulled him in about the subject of geology. So describing sitting in sort of a geology class in high school or college, he says, "I used to sit in class and listen to the terms come floating down the room like paper airplanes. Geology was called a descriptive science, and with its pitted outwash plains and drowned rivers, its hanging tributaries and starved coastlines, it was nothing if not descriptive. It was a fountain of metaphor, of isostatic adjustments and degraded channels, of angular unconformities and shifting divides, of rootless mountains and bitter lakes. Streams eroded headward, digging from 2 sides into mountain or hill, avidly struggling toward each other until the divide between them broke down, and the 2 rivers that did the breaking now became confluent, one yielding to the other, giving up its direction of flow and going the opposite way, to become a single stream capture. In the Sierra Nevada, the Yuba had captured the Bear. The Macho member of a formation in New Mexico was derived in large part from the solution and collapse of another formation. There was fatigued rock, an incompetent rock, an inequigranular fabric in rock. If you bent or folded rock, the inside of the curve was in a state of compression, the outside of the curve was under great tension, and somewhere in the middle was the surface of no strain. Thrust fault, reverse fault, normal fault, the 2 sides were active in every fault. The inclination of a slope on which boulders would stay put was the angle of repose. There seemed indeed to be more than a little of the humanities in this subject. Geologists communicated in English, and they could name things in a manner that sent shivers through the bones." So there, first of all, you get a flavor of McPhee's just amazing, remarkable voice in the written word. His prose stylings are like, par excellence in that passage. But you also start to understand what attracted him to geology. It's not just the subject matter of the rocks and the mountains, but it's all these words and this terminology and the richness of the vocabulary that I think really attracted McPhee and made him dedicate like 30 years of his career at different points to writing about geology and the history of the geological history of North America. Elsewhere in the book, he takes things into even a poetic territory. In this one passage that I'll read, he describes how the moon doesn't just influence the waters of the earth through the tides and creating ocean tides, it also influences the very terrain itself, the rocks and the geology of the planet itself. He writes, "The sea is not all that responds to the moon. Twice a day, the solid earth bobs up and down, as much as a foot. That kind of force and that kind of distance are more than enough to break hard rock. Wells will flow faster during lunar high tides." So that's just a short passage, but I was so fascinated and astounded by that little fact that he throws in there, that not only does the moon's lunar gravity kind of pull and push tides in the ocean, it also pulls and pushes the very crust of our planet itself. It makes rocks move by its gravity. And when you look around us and see everything in what appears to be a static and unchanging form, to think about that we have this little satellite orbiting our planet that is literally exerting a pull on all of us at all times is really fascinating, and it's a fact that really stuck through me. And then one of the other overarching themes of the book is just the vast reaches of geological time. In various passages of the book, when he's describing the geology of Wyoming and how the Mountain West got its shape, or how California came to be and all the gold got emplaced in the mountains, or how the northern end of the Appalachian Mountains rose and fell and rose and fell over the course of hundreds of millions of years, you just get this very deep sense as all these geological terms sort of wash over you of the vast depths of deep time on this planet. And it's really humbling, and it's really just fascinating, and it helps you start to understand why geologists do what they do, because they are all clearly so astounded by the majesty of the planet and of the deep time of geology. So there's a great passage here where McPhee is talking about a University of Kansas geologist named Randy Van Schmoos. So he's talking about Van Schmoos's specialty era, which is, of course, hundreds of millions of years ago. Representing only 20% of the Proterozoic eon, 1800 to 1400 million years ago, was nonetheless the central frame of his professional absorption. If one part of Precambrian time was his specialty, this was it. His own lifetime, beginning in the calendar year 1938 and expecting at least 70, was a sub-microscopic speck at the end of a widening shaft of information and thought that could reach to and bracket those 400 million years. The difference between one human lifetime and 400 million years would seem to be a difference between time incomprehensible and time infinitesimal. But what brings them together is that the smaller unit, bridging in the mind the intervening eons, can imagine and virtually see the larger one. So this metaphor, this picture that he paints of sort of the transcendent quality of across a human life being able to understand and comprehend and literally see rocks compressed and sedimented together that span hundreds and hundreds of millions of years, and in so doing being able to draw a connection between the two of them just through the human mind, I really just found to be so astounding and really fascinating. And it's what makes this book stand out in my mind as one of the most amazing works of natural history and reportage and narrative nonfiction and just an exploration of the living planet. So I highly recommend John McPhee's The Annals of the Former World to anyone who's interested in science writing or in geology, of course, or just in seeing a master at the height of their powers through prose stylings and through reportage and just through telling stories, both of humans and of the earth. Because that's the thing, is the earth and the changing rocks and tectonic plates are a character to their own right in this book. And so I highly recommend it. Go out and pick up a copy of The Annals of the Former World at your local bookshop today. And thanks for watching.